All right, welcome to today's edition of Coach to Coach Convo, and I am pleased to welcome probably the most followed high school football coach on Twitter or X or whatever it's called today, and a guy that I think's got a great story and a great message, Coach Kurt Hines from Coronado High School in the San Diego area in California. Thanks for being on with us this morning.
Coach, it's a blessing to be on with you. I appreciate you having me.
So just to kind of get us started, give us a little bit of background on just your general background in athletics and in coaching.
Yeah, to make a very long story short, grew up in Rhode Island, in Barrington, Rhode Island. So I grew up playing hockey and football. Loved both of them. And then in high school, made the decision to just stick with football. Played Division III college football at Plymouth State, Plymouth, New Hampshire. And I say that with a great smile on my face, Scott, because I was a good high school football player, but I knew how good I wasn't. I could have walked on to several local Division I programs, and who knows what would have happened. But I wasn't that good, you know. So I share with my players all the time, like, hey, if you love the game of football, not what sweatshirt your mom or dad can wear, not what sweatshirt your girlfriend can wear, but if you want to continue playing, go somewhere, not where it's easy, but go somewhere where you can compete. So I walked on at Plymouth State, Division III, as I said, football program. It was a very good Division III football program, and loved playing. That oddly enough led into my coaching career, where I always knew, well, I shouldn't say always, since seventh grade, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I always struggled in school. I was that little hellion causing trouble, being sent to the principal's office. I had a seventh grade math teacher who would sit on his desk at the beginning of every class and just say, hey, Scott, what's going on? Kurt, what's going on? Amy or Sarah, just talk to us about life for 5 or 10 minutes. And I remember sitting in that class thinking, this guy's different. This guy cares. Now, I'm sure there were other teachers. I know there were other teachers that cared as well. But just the fact that he didn't dive immediately into the income, the X's and the O's, if you will, but he took time to get to know us, that left a lasting impression with me, where I was like, man, I want to make a difference like he is. You know, he turned my life around in that respect. So fast forward to college, I was in I don't remember the name of the course, but some college class, and a professor asked if there were any volunteers to help out with, or anyone interested in volunteering to help out with a special needs flag football team. So I had a passion for working with kids with special needs and offered to be that individual. There was a practice we had. It was the first practice where a young woman, probably 6th or 7th grade, with Down syndrome, she and I were standing about 5 yards apart, tossing a football back and forth, and she dropped it over and over and over. And finally, when she caught it the 5th or 6th time, her eyes just lit up. And I remember that's a moment I hope I never forget. I don't remember the young woman's name, but I remember that moment of like, I want to do that. I want to combine my passion for empowering people, which can be done on a lot of platforms, with coaching. So fast forward, my wife and I got married young. We were married at 22. And I taught for 4 years. And then my 5th year, I reached out to a local high school football coach, just looking to get on the staff in any capacity, not looking for a paid position. And he actually needed a full-time head freshman coach. So I said, absolutely, I'd love to do it. And did that for 7 years, loved everything about it, had no desire even to go to the varsity, just loved doing my own thing down at the freshman level. And then I get a call one day from the head coach of the town we were living in and said, hey, Kurt, we'd love to have you on staff, you know. And the thought for me of being able to be on a high school staff where my son would eventually play was intriguing to me. Went there, left on very good terms, where I left Sauhegan with Mike Belleville, the head coach at the time, and went to this other school. After 2 weeks, I went home to my wife and I said, I'm done. I'm going to honor my commitment. I'm going to finish the year. But this guy, we don't see eye to eye on anything. And the X's and the O's, once again, were the least of my worries. It was just how individuals were being treated. So, as I mentioned, I honored my commitment, finished the year. And about halfway through that season, however, my wife was working at a brand new high school. It was just built, Bedford High School. And she said, hey, they're looking for a head coach. And, you know, my wife and I, we just celebrated our 29th anniversary not too long ago. She's my best friend, biggest supporter. And I said, Jill, thanks. I said, but I've been a freshman coach for 7 years and a varsity assistant for about 3 months, not even 3 months. And she goes, well, give it a shot. So I gave it a shot. I applied for the job, and I remember in the second interview. So the first interview went well. Second interview, I was with the principal and the athletic director, and they said, Coach, if you get the job, Bedford's a very affluent community. A lot of self-employed individuals, doctors, lawyers. They said it's a very demanding community. If you get the job, how long do you think before you're in the playoffs? And I don't consider myself arrogant at all, but I don't know why I didn't pause. But I looked them square in the eyes. I said, within 3 to 5 years. And they both laughed. And it wasn't a cruel laugh or anything like that, but it was just kind of like, all right, he doesn't know what he's in for if he gets this job. Fast forward, I got the job. And my first year, we set records in the state of New Hampshire for getting beat up more than any other team in the history of football. I wanted to have a little bit of pause there, so it was almost believable. We lost every game so badly, Scott, that I joke about it now. But at the end of the game, when you walk through and you shake hands with the other team, and win or lose, everyone says, good game. We were so bad, no one even lied to us. They would shake our hands, look around at our stadium. It was a beautiful stadium. And say, great field, great stadium. So that first year of my head coaching experience was the greatest I've ever had. Now, it was not enjoyable. It was painful. It was humiliating. It was gut-wrenching. But the reason I say it was the greatest because it made me solidify my why. And I know we're going to dive into this a little bit more, but you had mentioned before we started recording about, and I'm paraphrasing, but the world's overpopulated with coaches that know the X's and the O's, that could step up and call and run a practice and call an offense or a defense. But what's lacking is the relationships. And that first year really made me take a hard look at myself and say, why am I doing this? Why not? And I use the word just with air quotes. Why not just remain a position coach or a strength and conditioning coach or whatever? It's a lot less responsibility, a lot less headaches, a lot less, and the list goes on and on. And for me, my why for being a head coach was to be in a position of power where I could hand select the individuals, the men and women that were going to stand side by side with me and coach these young men and young women. Because once again, everyone knows, not everyone, many people know the game of football or whatever sport it is. But too many use football, in my opinion, to pad their own resume, and they use people to pad their own stats or however you want to word it, but they don't use football as a platform to bless and serve others. So fast forward, I stayed there at Bedford. I didn't get fired after my first year. We did make it to the playoffs my third year. We got kicked out first round. But then the last 4 years that I was in Bedford, we went to the state championship 3 out of those 4 years, and it was in Division III, and then Division II, and then Division I, the highest division in New Hampshire. We had 144 young men in the program, and not I, and I really want to stress this, but we, my staff and I, and our staff and I, the community, the players, we built a powerhouse. And then my daughter called one day, and she had come out to San Diego State and gotten married several years after, and she said, I'm pregnant. And my heart leapt. I was like, yes, I'm going to be a grandfather. And then moments later, I was like, oh, no, because I knew we weren't going to remain in New Hampshire. We didn't want to be – this is phenomenal for coaches talking across the country. But for a grandfather or a grandchild, you don't want to be doing this over a computer screen.
Grandkids change everything. I can tell you from personal experience.
Amen. How many do you have?
10.
Wow. All right. Well, we got to catch up. We're stuck at 2 right now. I won't say stuck, but yeah. So I left Bedford. We flew out to California, sold everything we had, and was an assistant coach at a private Christian school where I still currently teach 4th grade there, and just felt the call. Really felt the tug on my heart to be a head coach again, and then applied for the head coaching job at Coronado High School in San Diego. And just wrapped up my 7th season there. So it was a little bit longer story than maybe it should have been, but that's the coaching journey thus far.
No, it's a great story, and I think the best part of that whole story to me is that first year as a head coach. Like, I think those are the stories that young coaches need to hear, because it doesn't happen day one, right? I mean, there's one of the interviews that I did is with a friend of mine that's a coach here in Michigan that in a 7-year stretch won 6 state championships.
Wow.
And part of his story is that his first 4 years as a head coach was at a different school, and he won 2 games in 4 years and got fired. Yeah. Right. So every story is different, and every story has its ups and downs for sure. So
Absolutely.
it's obvious you have a popular brand or an attractive platform, and what you're very open about your Christian faith. What role do you think that has played in that popularity, so to speak? And how much do you incorporate your faith into your coaching?
Great question. Yeah, I'd like to say the role that it takes or that it has in my platform and what I share is in the forefront and the foreground of everything. Just like you, I feel very confident that you are a strong Christian as well, because you wouldn't have asked this question or wanted to have me on if you weren't. Excuse me. I fortunately, through the grace of God, stopped caring years ago about what other people think about me, and just really trying to live my life to an audience of one, realizing that if we try to please every parent, and you know this as well as I do, Coach, preseason, if you have 3, 5, however quarterbacks you may have in your program, most families love you, or those quarterback families, and think you're probably the smartest coach they've ever heard. And then when the depth chart comes out and there's QB1 and QB2, 4 of those family thinks you're an idiot, and one wants to transfer, another one wants to fire their personal, quarterback coach. So we can't live our lives, let alone our coaching lives, trying to please the parents or even the players, because they don't always. Sometimes we have a young man that wants to be a slot back. We had it this past year, a slot receiver who, because of our lack of depth and size, we need to move him from a potential starter at slot to an offensive guard. And he owned it, and he killed it, became a team captain, and I will forever remember his selflessness. But in sharing all that, we've got to, I think all of us have got to find, whether it's God, whether people believe in the power of stones. I'm not trying to be, I can't think of the word, disrespectful or a fool rebel. Whatever it is, individuals feels that gives them purpose and power and a sense of fulfillment. I think the world's lacking people that know what makes them tick and giving everything to that. Because if you can't turn on the news now or open up any social media app without seeing hatred and negativity and people attacking other people. And I've had people come at me who've said, "Coach, stick to coaching. Leave this religious nonsense." Their words. Really, leave this out of here. And I've never gone back and forth with someone on social media. Matter of fact, I will, and it doesn't happen that often now, but when I do get negative attacks, for lack of better words, like that, I will 100% of the time send them a private message and just try to open some dialogue. Not trying to convert them, not trying to convince them that they're wrong and I'm right, because that's not true. This is my truth. This is my belief. But just saying, hey, let me know if I can ever pray for you. And I've had people block me and unfollow me. But I also had a young, I shouldn't say young woman. I believe she's older than I am. Well, I'll still say young woman.
So let's go with young.
Yes, thank you. Who it was about a year and a half ago, my father had passed away. And I remember sitting upstairs. My wife had gone to work that day. And I remember sitting upstairs on our couch in our bedroom, just doing a video, like many of the videos I post, talking about the passing of my father. And I remember saying in the video something to the effect of, I don't even know why I'm sharing this, whether it's for my own healing, whatever it is. And I had veins popping. I had tears coming down. I had snot bubbles. It was probably the least attractive I've ever looked in my entire life, but the rawest of videos. And I didn't expect a single retweet, or I'm sure there would be likes and comments. Long story short, there was a woman who reached out to me, and it had several hundred, 200 or whatever it was, retweets. So I thought, all right, that it wasn't the reason I shared it there, and I shared my faith openly in that video as well. But it resonated with a good number of people. There was a woman who sent me a private message who said, I was just about to unfollow you because several weeks earlier, because I thought some of the stuff you shared was self-promoting or whatever it was. And she went on and she said, but your video that you just shared, and I'm paraphrasing once again, but she said, it moved her in a certain way. She said she and her husband had not talked to their adult son in their late 20s, I believe, in about 4 or 5 years. She said she sent the video to him and he called them. So I thought, all right, God, that's a pretty cool way to use someone's pain. And I think there's a purpose behind all of our pain. There's a pretty awesome thing that happens in our lives when we don't try to live to please others, but to please God and to serve God.
and to be willing to be vulnerable like that. I
Yeah,
think people that one of the most impactful books for me that I've read in the last few years is The Twin Thieves, that talks about the two things that hold people back are the fear of failure and the fear of judgment. And I think, putting the stuff out that you do, clearly you're not concerned about anybody judging you, and that's fantastic.
correct. Well, and I'm it's been a process. You talked earlier, Coach, about young coaches needing to understand the trials and tribulations of being a first year coach or coordinator or head coach, whatever it may be. I think so often what people post on social media are just our highlight films. They're, they're the good moments of life, the celebration, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do that as well. But I think when we are open enough with our coaching staffs, with people on social media, and show us a level of transparency, it tears down a lot of walls in people's hearts and allows them to realize that they're not alone. Because I haven't met yet a head coach of any sport that every day is sunshine and roses, and rainbows or whatever. It's not out there. I often laugh because I know when you and I were children, they often said, if you want to make everyone happy, sell ice cream. Well, in today's day and age, there's going to be someone who's lactose intolerant who's going to try to cancel us and say, how dare we mention ice cream? And that's hurtful and it's violent. And so yeah, we're never going to please everyone. And if we try to, then we're going to live a sad existence.
Right. So my next question really revolves around social media. Do you have a specific mission for your use of social media?
Wow, another great question. Yeah, I believe my mission for social media now is very similar to my life calling, if you will, and that is to bless, serve, and empower as many people as I can. When I teach fourth grade, I've taught elementary school for 29 years now, and I've coached high school
God
football.
bless you. I did that for 2 years, and it was not for me.
Well, and likewise, it's funny because I've never taught. I've always taught first through fourth grade in the regular classroom teacher, but I've always coached high school football. And so often people are like, "Oh man, those are two different worlds," and I'm like, "They're not." I'm like, they're my students are 40 pounds, my players are 200 pounds or 240 pounds, whatever it may be. But I think all people innately want to know that their presence makes a difference, that they're loved, and that they're going to be cared for, and that's where the two worlds meet. But that is my calling, to bless, serve, and empower as many people as I can. And with social media, I figure it's such an amazing platform where not only can gentlemen like you and I, who I think it's safe to say probably would have never crossed paths if it were not for social media, can we connect with each other? But it allows us to leave a legacy. I was asked about a week ago. I was on a podcast with a different gentleman. He said, "What do you want your legacy to be?" And I said, years ago, it was all about me. It was about what type of coach I was, what type of father I was, first and foremost, a husband. And for now, my prayer is that when my time comes and God takes me home, that when people mention my name, there's something in the forefront of their mind or the pit of their stomach or their heart somewhere that just makes them think of Christ. And I'm far, far from that. There are so many days I wake up with the best of intentions and I go to bed going, damn, I just messed that one up. This was not the day it should have been. But I think that if that's our goal with our own walk in life, and then whatever platforms we're blessed to be a part of, it's a pretty cool thing.
Awesome. What's next for Coach Kurt Hines?
Getting back in shape. It's good we're talking January 2nd here. Football seasons are tough, I think, for all coaches, or once again, any sport. I shouldn't say I don't have the time to work out. I don't make the time. I get up at 5:30 in the morning, say prayer with my wife, head to school, get to the high school, have practice, get home around 7:30. But I'm excited just to really focus more on balance in my life. And my wife and I were talking, so many individuals this time of the year make resolutions, and I think that's great. And they make commitments to change and improve certain areas of their lives. I am so blessed now, but solely by the grace of God, to be in a position, in our lives where I'm married to my best friend of 29 years. We have 4 children, not 10 yet, but 2 grandchildren. We love our jobs. Could I be thinner? Yes. Could I have a little bit more money in the bank? Absolutely. But I think what's next for me is just continuing to not take God's blessings for granted, because without getting preachy, this past year, the past few years, we've seen some stuff going on in the world, and just whether it's about the borders or whatever. I don't want to get political, but the world's not going to become a nicer and sweeter place. I think it's going to get nastier and darker. But I think for us, it's a choice of just to hide and shrink in our homes and close our eyes, or to just fight against that evil and say, hey, the battle's been fought. The war has been won. What side am I on? And am I going to serve Satan or am I going to serve God? And for me, my house, we're going to serve God. So I think it's more of the same, but just kind of putting more emphasis on just doing a better job of using the gifts that God has given us.
That's amazing. Coach, I appreciate your time. Folks, if you, I'm certain if you watch this all the way through, you got a real blessing from our time here with Coach Hines. And I would encourage you to follow him on Twitter or X or whatever it's called today. I mean, I know he's blessed me many, many times, and will continue to do so. And if this was a blessing to you, like, share, subscribe, and we'll continue to get out great content like this with great coaches like Coach Hines. Coach, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.